Hello everyone! I am your Kuya Rio, and today I will be sharing to you some of the basic and at the same time relevant concept and information relative to genetic mutations in human by unlocking some of the intriguing questions about the topic. To begin my discussion, let us first have a brief talk about genetic mutation and know what it is all about. So the first question is, what are genetic mutations? So when we say about genetic mutations, these are the changes in your DNA sequence that happens during cell division when your cell makes copies of themselves. Your DNA tells your body how to form and function. Genetic mutations could lead to genetic conditions like cancer, or they could help humans better adapt to their environment over time. When do genetic mutation happens? Okay, genetic mutation occurs during cell division when your cells divides and replicates. There are two types of cell division. We have the mitosis and the meiosis. Mitosis, this is the process of making new cells for your body. During mitosis, your genes instruct your cell to split into two by making a copy of your chromosomes. On the other hand, meiosis is the process of making egg and sperm cells for the next generation. During meiosis, chromosomes copy themselves with half of the amount of chromosomes as the original, from 46 to 23. That's how you're able to get your genetic material equally from each of your parents. Next question is, how do genetic mutations happen? Genetic mutations occurs during cell division. When your cells divide, they handwrite your body's instruction manual by copying the original document word for word. There is a lot of room for error during cell division because your cell might substitute, delete, or insert letters while they're copying. If you have an error, or known as a genetic mutation, your genetic instruction manual for your cell may not be readable by the cell or may have missing parts or unnecessary parts added. All these can mean that your cell can't function as they normally should. How do genetic mutations affect other organs? A genetic mutation changes the information your cells need to form and function. Your genes are responsible for making proteins that tell your body what physical characteristic you should have. If you have a genetic mutation, you could experience symptoms and genetic conditions because your cells are doing a different job than they should be. Symptoms of genetic conditions depends on which gene has a mutation. There are many different diseases and conditions caused by mutations. The signs and symptoms you experience could include physical characteristics like facial abnormalities, cleft palate, webbed fingers and toes, or short stature. Also, problems with cognitive or intellectual functions and developmental delays, vision or hearing loss, breathing problems, and increased risk of developing cancers. So, Kuya, are genetic mutations are bad? So, not all genetic mutations lead to genetic disorders. Some genetic mutations don't have any effects on our health and well-being. This is because the changes in DNA sequence doesn't change how your cell functions. Your body also has enzymes, which are a substance that creates chemical reactions in our body. These enzymes help our body protect itself from diseases. Enzymes can repair a variety of genetic mutations before they affect how a cell functions. Some genetic mutations even have a positive effect on humans. Remember that changes in how cells work can sometimes improve the protein that your cell produce and allow them to adapt to changes in your environment. An example of the positive genetic mutation is one that protects a person from acquiring heart disease or diabetes, even with a history of smoking or being overweight. Another question about genetic mutation is that, how do genetic mutation lead to genetic variation? Okay, a genetic mutation is a change to gene's DNA sequence to produce something different. It creates a permanent change to that gene's DNA sequence. Genetic variation are important for human to evolve, which is the process of change over generation. As sporadic genetic mutations occurs in one person, that person passes their genetic mutations into their children and it continues for generation. If the mutation improves the person's chance of survival or freedom from disease, then it begins being passed through generations and spread through the population. As the mutation passes from generation to generation, it becomes a normal part of the human genome and it evolves from a gene variant into a normal gene. What are the different types of genetic mutations? Okay, there are different types of genetic mutations based on where they form. Types of genetic mutations may include germline mutation and somatic mutation. Germline mutation is a change in a gene that occurs in the parent's reproductive cells that affects the genetic makeup of their children. On the other hand, somatic mutation is a change in a gene that occurs after conception and in the developing embryo that may become a baby. This occurs in all cells in the developing body except the sperm and the egg. Somatic mutation can pass from parents to their children because traits are passed only from the sperm and egg. Kuya, can I inherit genetic mutations? Actually, yes. You can inherit germline genetic mutations, while somatic mutations occurs with no previous history of the mutation in your family. There are several patterns that genetic mutation can pass from the parent to a child. Since you already have a background about genetic mutations, now this time, let's talk more about genetic disorders. What are genetic disorders? Genetic disorders is a condition caused by changes in your genome or the genetic material present in the human. It includes your DNA, your genes, and your chromosomes. Several factors causes genetic conditions, including mutations of one gene or the monogenic, mutations of multiple genes, other known as the multifactorial inheritance, the mutations of one or more chromosomes, environmental factors like chemical exposure or UV rays that changes your genetic makeup, or you can also inherit the genetic conditions from your parents, specifically if it's germ cell DNA in the sperm or egg, or the genetic condition can happen randomly without having a history of the genetic conditions in your family. So what are the common genetic disorders? There are thousands of genetic conditions that exist. Some of the most common genetic conditions are Alzheimer's disease, some cancers, cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, and sickle cell disease. So kuya, how can we keep our genes healthy to prevent genetic mutations? So for this question, some genetic mutations happen randomly and you can prevent them from occurring. Other genetic mutations can be the result of changes in your environment. You can take steps to prevent some of the genetic mutations by simply avoiding smoking, wearing sunscreen when out of the sun, and avoiding chemical exposure or exposure to radiations, and eating a healthy, balanced diet and avoiding processed foods. And that would be all for today. I hope you learned something from my discussion, specifically about the genetic mutation in human. Again, this is your Kuya Yusukogo, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. See ya!